Welcome into Fantasy Pros Lineup Advice live stream for this very special edition, a very, very early one for most of you, but not for me. I'm Tom Strachan. You'll have read my work on FantasyPros.com, but perhaps not realize you were reading words written in a British accent. So, of course, I was a natural choice to host this very early show. Joining me, woken up extra early, is the one and only Fitz as we get you all set for this week's action. Pat, are you awake and ready to help the people out?
I am, Tom. Yeah, early start here, but hey, NFL Sunday, the adrenaline is flowing. So,
yeah, I love it. What's your normal morning routine like when we've got these London games?
oh man, up early, up around 5 a.m., update rankings, check Twitter and Discord for last minute lineup questions. Make sure my own lineups are ship shape, which was really difficult this week with all the moving parts. Injuries, the players not injured who we thought were. Michael Pittman's going on IR, and all of a sudden, no, he's going to play. So it's been a challenging week, Tom.
It has, yeah, a lot of news, a lot of stuff going on. Of course, if we don't get to your question, remember there's all the tools, all the rankings on the website to get you set up to win. But we're going to try and rattle through as many questions as possible today. We are going to start with Zay Monies. Which RB should I sit? Rico Dowdle, Zach Moss, Javonte Williams, or Tyrone Tracy? Obviously, a lot of injuries affecting that one. For me, that's probably Zach Moss because he sounds a bit shaky. Where'd you fall on this one, Pat?
I'm with you, Tom. As it was, we know that's a split backfield with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. And you would think with Zach Moss not fully healthy that maybe Chase Brown sees a majority of the work this week.
Yeah, it just feels like Zach Moss is slowly losing the grip on that backfield. Like, I think his opportunity shares reduced for a few straight weeks now. So definitely feeling less good about him as we go. Next question up from Frank. Tank Dell, Jalen Tolbert, or Wan'Dale Robinson in my second flex, half PPR?
This one's a close one for me between Tank Dell and Wan'Dale Robinson. I have to go with Wan'Dale. You would prefer full point PPR with Wan'Dale rather than half point. But it does seem like he is a near lock for about a dozen targets and probably 7, 8, maybe more receptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think like that Bengals defense is so poor, whereas the Patriots defense, they're poor, but like the Patriots have a habit of being able to take the air out of a game, whereas I think it's obvious that we'll get more points in the Sunday night game. So yeah, I'd lean towards Wandale there, but it was definitely between Dell and Wandale for me. Jalen Tolbert not quite in there. Next up, we've got from Badman, Ford or Tank Bigsby, half PPR. Where we're going on that first one?
Ford or Bigsby? I believe I have Bigsby ranked. Oh yeah, one spot higher. That's really close. RB 28 and RB 29. Um, I do worry that Bigsby, with only 2 receptions in 22 NFL games, can potentially get game scripted out of any situation where the Jaguars fall behind. But they're only 1 point underdogs this week against the Bears. It should be a competitive game. Bigsby has been running well. I'm just avoiding that Cleveland offense if I can, Tom. Last week,
Yeah.
great matchup against the Washington defense, and they put up 215 yards of offense.
Yeah, it's just like you don't know what you're going to get from the Browns offense at any week. Like Jerome Ford, he'll have these weeks where he pops up for 7 receptions, 7 targets, but like it's not really good on the ground game at the minute because the offensive line's so built up. Whereas Bigsby, the way to attack the Bears is on the ground. So if the Jags can stay competitive in that one, then I think that's the right way to go with it. I mean, look, Bigsby leads all running backs with like 8 yards per carry at the minute. Like he's been really fun. So if you're awake and ready to go and want to actually watch some in the London game, I don't mind that. And then just quickly, Shahida, Dunze, or McConkey.
McConkey for me here. And it seems like this could be a pretty good setup for him, especially if the Broncos have Patrick Surtain Jr. follow Quentin Johnston around. It just seems like the slot guy is going to get a lot of work today for the Chargers.
Yep, love that one. And we'll go to Jalen Tolbert over Chris Olave with Spencer Rattler making his first NFL start. Are we going that far with Tolbert?
Let me see here. I think I might be going that far, Tom. I actually do have Tolbert ranked a little bit ahead of Olave this week.
Man, it's
er,
just really difficult to predict what we're going to get out of Spencer Rattler. I'm concerned.
Yeah, actually, I take that back. They're adjacent. I have Chris Olave ranked 1 spot higher than Tolbert, so I would encourage Robert to trust his gut on that one. But it sounds like that he is even asking the question. It sounds like his gut is telling him that maybe Tolbert is the way to go. Yeah, I'm definitely nervous about Spencer Rattler, a 5th-round rookie making his NFL debut against a defensive-minded head coach who loves to blitz. He, I would think Spencer Rattler is going to be blitzed vigorously today.
Yeah, and I mean, going to the Cowboys side of things, like we know that they are going to pass heavy, the 3rd heaviest pass team in the NFL. We know the way to get the Lions is through the passing game. They've got an excellent run defense, so I don't mind it. I mean, the Bucks, their defense seems to be up and down, but yeah, I can very much understand that question, and that's going to be kind of coin flip territory for me this week. Let's go to Alfred. Says, I've got these Ravens shirts behind me. I'm quite a biased Ravens fan, Pat. Full PPR. I picked up Bateman for the flex. Thoughts, please? I think Bateman's a fine playing the flex. Do you think that this is a good matchup for him?
It seems like it. The Commanders really do give it up to opposing wide receivers last week against the Browns, notwithstanding. So I think he's a very valid flex play in a week where we have so many players missing.
Yeah, it's just like I think last week was his highest fantasy points return since week 2 of the 2022 season when he blew up against Miami. So I'm hopeful that he's going to kick on. The Ravens offense seems a bit difficult to interpret at the minute. Let's move over to some running back question though. Trey Sermon, Tyron Tracy, or Allen. I'm assuming that's Braylon Allen. Where are you going with that one, Pat?
I have Tyrone Tracy ranked running back 13 this week, Tom. With no Devin Singletary, the workload we saw him get last week, and the fact that Eric Gray lost a fumble at the 2-yard line that was scooped up in return for a touchdown. Like Tracy has that dual run catch potential we like. And he looked good. Like for a guy who only switched to running back a couple of years ago after being a former college wide receiver, he looked decisive and powerful. That was an exciting performance last week by Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him get involved a little bit more in the passing game because you mentioned that's obviously something he can do. But yeah, I think top 20 easily for Tyrone Tracy this week. So we've got Tank Bigsby or Lad McConkey, two players we've already talked a little bit about, but where are you going when you have to split the difference on them?
If it's full point PPR, I would play Lad McConkey and just take advantage of the scoring system because we know Tank probably isn't going to catch any passes today. So if it's half is really close. That's getting into coin flip territory. I think I might lean Tank there. What about you if it's half point PPR, Tom?
Half point PPR. Yeah, I think I'd probably lean towards Tank. I just feel like everything's trending up for him at the minute, but it's not by a lot at all. That's definitely a tricky one. The next one we've got, this is a fun one. Javonte Williams as the flex or Jameson Williams. Like, obviously, Jameson Williams seems to be a much bigger part of the plan this year, but whenever you play him, you're kind of accepting the level of volatility, whereas Javonte Williams seems to have kind of come on a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Where do you go on there, Pat?
In most circumstances, I think I'm playing Jameson Williams here, just because like last time was kind of an exception, his last game, but for the most part, he's been pretty consistently involved, which was sort of what we coveted for Jameson Williams. We have seen Javonte's workload tick up. He's had 18 touches in each of his last two games. I think if I were maybe projected to win by 10 or more points, I might go with the safer touch floor of Javonte. Most circumstances, I would play JMO.
Yeah, kind of Jamel's one of those players that I'd feel more comfortable playing if you're down to a Deebo Samuel performance from Thursday night or something like that, and you really haven't to look for upside. Then I think that's the upside scenario there. Obviously, the Broncos game, it just always has the potential to be a bit low scoring. Neither passing offense is particularly good, so we think that it could be a bit slow paced. So, fully agree with you there. Next one we've got from Daniel from Germany. 2 for PPR. Tyrone Tracy, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon, Windale Robinson, and Shaheed. So for me, I think I'm probably leaning towards Tyrone Tracy as one of those guys. I mean, it's probably Wandale, and I appreciate it was a decent bit of draft capital on the bench, but where are you going?
I have to go double Giants right with you, Tom. I mean, not ideal to recommend two players on the same team, but considering that there's no Devin Singletary and no Malik Neighbors this week, you would think that Tyrone Tracy and Wandale Robinson are going to account for a pretty big percentage of the yardage for the New York Giants today against a not very good Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals last week, they completely stacked the box to try and take away Derrick Henry, but then they just couldn't stop the passing game, and nobody's suggesting that Daniel Jones is Lamar Jackson. But when you look in DVOA, the Bengals are 25th against the pass, 22nd against the run. They allow the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, 12th most to running backs, 4th most to tight ends, and the 13th most to wide receivers. So I just don't believe that there's much that the Bengals are going to do to stop the Giants at least putting up some points, regardless of whether they win or not. Let's go over to Shelvors. Morning all. I need 2. Full PPR. Bucky with the workload with Rashad White listed as doubtful. Darnell Mooney with the great matchup, or Brian Thomas Jr. because he's Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah. I think Mooney is the odd man out for me here. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of in the zone where I don't care about matchup. Like he might see a lot of Jalen Johnson today for the Bears, one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Don't care. Don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian Thomas is just so good. Like he can win that matchup. So I want to play him. And then, yeah, Bucky over Mooney. That's a close call. How do you feel about this, Tom?
Yeah, I think if Rashad White's out, I probably lean towards Bucky, and then I can't bench a guy in Brian Thomas Jr. who's been a top 10 wide receiver in back-to-back weeks. That's like, it is a scary matchup, and I'm quite down on the Jags in general this week because of that matchup. But what Brian Thomas Jr. is doing is everything that we would hope. So why bench him? I think that's how I'd have to land on that one. We'll take another one. Let's stay with the kind of London game though questions and get these answered nice and early before kickoff. Caleb Williams or Justin Fields this week? Justin Fields seems to be losing his grip ever so slightly on this one.
Right now, I've got Fields ranked quarterback 10 and Caleb ranked quarterback 12. I do think Fields is maybe the better percentage play, but one scenario, and the scary scenario of that percentage doesn't hit, is if Fields gets benched early. Like if he struggles, and that's not inconceivable now that Russell Wilson is ready to play. So that concerns me. I still would recommend Fields by a nose. Both top 12 guys. It's a really close call. I mean, if your gut is telling you, like, flashing the warning sign about Fields, I totally get it, because after that Dallas game, I think his leash has shortened considerably.
Yeah, I think there will be weeks where I feel very nervous about playing Justin Fields, but it's probably not this one against the Raiders. We saw Lamar Jackson be able to do what he wanted on the ground against them pretty much, and I know the Steelers' offensive line is in a difficult spot, and Max Crosby will be out there, but I feel kind of fine about him. But I've got Justin Fields at QB8, and then I've got Caleb at QB10, so it's not an awful lot between them. But yeah, anyway, we've partnered with our good friends at Trophy Smack to give away the ultimate symbol for fantasy football dominance, a 6-pound custom championship belt. This massive, fully customizable belt is the perfect way to show off your fantasy football title victory. You can use one of Trophy Smack's designs, or you can personalize it with your own image or logo to make it truly unique. To enter, all you need to do, subscribe to FantasyPros YouTube channel right now, drop a comment below on any of our videos, and that's it. We'll be announcing the winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. Let's get back to these questions, though, because we have loads coming in, lots of early risers with lots of things on their mind. Travis Etienne or Chase Brown, PPR flex? I feel like that's one which would be a lot easier if Zach Moss wasn't playing.
Yeah, I know. I was so disappointed I didn't get to rank Chase Brown as a running back one, Tom. And as of now, I have Travis Etienne ranked 2 spots higher, and I do not feel great about that.
Yeah.
I wish we were getting the certainty of that Chase Brown workload. I just don't know what it's going to look like now. And I'm going with Etienne here, but don't feel strongly about it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm going with ETN as well. Again, I don't feel massively strongly about it. Like I mentioned, the way to get at the Bears is through the running game. And when it comes to Chase Brown, the Giants did a pretty good job against Kenneth Walker. I feel like, they are giving up yards after the catch at time, but they're quite good at stopping massive, massive plays. So not by a lot. Let's go over to the football chef's question. 12-man half PPR, Chase Brown, Tyron Tracy, and Tank Bigsby. It's a lot of the same names this morning, Pat. We need to pick 2 to start. Bigsby to ride the line this week. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's Tyrone Tracy and Tank Bigsby for me.
It's Tyrone Tracy and Chase Brown for me. It's really close. I've Chase Brown ranked like 3 spots ahead of Bigsby, but it's that single barrel usage for Tank Bigsby. Just the fact that he gives you nothing as a pass catcher. Like I like having multiple outs, multiple paths to fantasy success in a given week for a running back.
Nice. Let's go to some wide receiver questions, though. Lad McConkey, Jalen Tolbert, Christian Kirk, start 2 in PPR.
I think this is still Kirk for me, especially with, and we talked about this a little before we came on air, Tom, the Bears not having Jaquan Brisker and Tyreek Stevenson, and maybe that diminishes their pass defense just slightly. So Christian Kirk, and then I have Lad McConkey slightly ranked ahead of Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah. I mean, this is where we're at this point in the season, isn't it? It's like the bye weeks are here. The questions are tricky. Having to start Jalen Tolbert probably isn't something a lot of people thought they were going to do a few weeks ago. But yeah, such is life at this point in the season. Another Tank Bigsby question, this time with Roshan Johnson or Braylon Allen as RB2 full PPR.
Tank here. The other guys are number 2 running backs, and Bigsby is more of a 50-50 guy, a 1B versus guys who are 2s.
Yeah, I think with Roshan Johnson, you're just hoping that he gets into the end zone twice, and he does have 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but it's a bit of a thin bet for me when you got a guy like Tank Bigsby. And Travis Etienne is obviously dealing with a shoulder injury, so maybe his workload is lightened at points. Let's see. A waiver wire question. Darius Slayton or Antonio Gibson off the waiver wire for flex, obviously with Malik Neighbors out. Another chance for Darius Slayton to have a big game. Looked good last week. Antonio Gibson should be the RB1 in New England with Ramondre Stevenson out. But it doesn't feel like the Patriots are necessarily going to give the entire workload over to Antonio Gibson. Where do you land on this, Pat? Pat?
I'm still going with Gibson, although, yeah, it's probably not. Yeah, it's probably not going to be a completely full workload, but Gibson does have a pretty clear floor of like a dozen touches, maybe up to, 15, 18, 20. So I have to go Gibson here.
Yeah, I can understand. Again, Darius Slayton's probably one of those plays where if I'm down a decent amount after Thursday night, then I'm quite happy to play him and swing for upside. Let's go Zach Moss or Tucker Kraft for flex full PPR. This one's Tucker Kraft for me because I just feel like, back-to-back tight end 1 weeks. He's got a very nice matchup, lots of points on the table on this one against the Cardinals, and I'm all in on Tucker Kraft. Am I getting too carried away, Pat?
I don't think so, Tom. I mean, he and Jaden Reed are the two Packer pass catchers who are consistently used and who you can consistently count on in this offense. So, yeah, I generally don't love starting tight ends in my flex spot, but this week I'm doing it in like 3 leagues. So, yeah, I'm on board.
Next one, we got Darius Slayton or Michael Pittman full PPR. Like, we'll get to the second half in a minute, but obviously Michael Pittman, the yo-yo, in, out. Not sure if he was going on IR, apparently going to play through it. And of course, he gets Anthony Richardson back at quarterback. Are you putting Michael Pittman there despite not really seeing much from him this season, or is this Darius Slayton?
I'm actually going with Darius Slayton here. And just because the range of options so polarized now for Daniel Jones in this one, you would think Slayton has to be pretty prominently involved. I have no idea what to expect with Pittman, Tom, but we've seen the Josh Downs usage ramped up. We know that there are going to be some deep shots to Alec Pierce. And the thing is, I just don't think there's ever going to be that much passing volume with the Colts as long as it's Anthony Richardson at quarterback. I like that they play at a fast pace, but they are still going to have one of the run heaviest like splits, the run pass. That's one of the few teams I would expect to run more than pass most weeks.
Yeah, the Titans as well have been a good pass defense this year. Like, in terms of this list of players, they've kept below 11 PPR points. Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen. Now, obviously, there was some quarterback stuff going on for some of them, but like the Titans aren't an easy team to pass on right now, so I'm good with that.
Yeah,
let's go.
Snead and Awuzie at cornerback now. I mean, that is not a pass defense to be trifled with.
Absolutely. So let's go to Lego's question. Good morning, bros. I'm getting wrecked in the RB position. 10-team full PPR. Antonio Gibson or Tyrone Tracy first?
Tracy for me. Top 15 running back this week.
Yeah. And absolutely just a better game environment as well. And then Wandale Robinson, Darnell Mooney, or Devonta Smith. Like, I've got to go Devonta Smith. The Browns defense has regressed from last year. I know it's not a perfect environment, but I have to start him over those guys. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, he's just the best player of that group by far. I mean, probably one of the 10 best route runners in the NFL, maybe top 5. So, yeah, I'm going Devonta Smith.
Let's go to another early game question. Brian Thomas Jr. or wait for later on and go with Xavier Legette.
Hey, Legette's interesting, but Thomas looks like a star. So that's an easy one, Isaiah.
Yeah. And I mean, the Falcons' pass defense is pretty good as well. So it's not like we're getting one really good matchup and one that's not. Christian Kirk or Tank Dell?
I might have to, I have to actually check the rankings on this because I know they are right next to each other. I have Tank Dell ranked 1 spot ahead of Christian Kirk. That is in the coin flip zone for me, Tom. Sorry, Carl. I know that's not a very decisive answer, but
yeah,
how do you feel about that one, Tom?
I'm a bit higher on Tank Dell versus the consensus today. I've got Tank Dell as my wide receiver 24 and Christian Kirk as my wide receiver 34. But like I said, I'm quite down on the Jags in general. So yeah, I think I go towards Tank Dell because if not now, when? We don't have Nico Collins out there, and if after a full week of the Texans being able to game script stuff up, they knew that he was going to be out for at least a week very early on. If they have not gone out of their way to kind of try and make Tank Dell a thing, then it's probably time to start talking about whether he's even startable at any point. So yeah, that's a difficult one. Todd's got another early game question. Travis Etienne or Chase Brown, PPR flex. Where'd you go there, Pat?
Yeah, just ETN by nose.
Yeah. And then the Superflex question for Todd: Justin Fields, Josh Allen, or Goff in Superflex? I mean, Josh Allen getting into these conversations is quite something.
I know, and he has been a hard play to rank this week, and I initially put him at quarterback 5 or quarterback 6, and then just realized I couldn't do that with his depleted weaponry. So I've got him down at quarterback 9, Tom, but that would
Yep.
still put
Same.
him one spot ahead of Justin Fields for me, and several spots ahead of Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think that the Lions are going to lean run heavy here. We know that's how to get at the Cowboys. They've looked better over the last 2 games, but on the whole, I still think you are going to want to attack that defense on the ground. So Goff doesn't come into the equation for me, but then I've got Justin Fields and Josh Allen back to back, so it's real coin flip and probably just have to trust your gut on that one. Michael's asking, are we taking Bucky Irving or J.K. Dobbins today? Full PPR, 12-team redraft.
Man, I'm playing Bucky Irving. Like I feel good about Bucky Irving for, well, one, for the obviously heightened workload with the likelihood that Rachaad White misses this game. Number 2, I think there's no chance like the Buccaneers aren't going to run the ball. Like they are going to have a run friendly game script against the Saints today. So I like him. Like Dobbins, steady diet of touches. I think he's averaged 17.7 touches a game over his last 3. But Denver has been one of the toughest defensive matchups, run or pass, of any team this season. I think they've allowed the 10th fewest fantasy points to running backs. I think they're 6th in DVOA against the run. Like this, Vance Joseph's unit has been playing fabulously this year.
Yeah, and the thing for J.K. Dobbins is he's dominated against the teams who rank in the bottom sort of 8 of run defense DVOA in those first couple of games against the Panthers and the Raiders. And then the teams like the Chiefs, Steelers, and potentially like the Broncos, who are up there in the top 6 of DVOA. I think that's just going to be a much harder sell. So, yeah, definitely I'm with you there. Question from Cheryl: Is Brian Robinson Jr. playing? Fantasy Football League said he was out yesterday. He is out. He was confirmed out last night. So yeah, definitely get Brian Robinson out of those lineups. Let's go to another one. We've got Bijan or Josh Jacobs, half PPR. I mean, your lineup's got to be stacked if you're worrying about which one of these to, because I'd love to see who you're benching or who else is already in there. This one's Bijan in a perfect matchup for me, Pat.
Yeah, I'm not sitting Bijan against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers allow like the second most running back fantasy points. If Bijan can't do it against the Panthers, then we've really got some problems, and there's going to be a lot of talk this week. But yes, very much. And then let's go Baker Mayfield, who has been excellent this year outside of 1 week, or Kyler Murray, who's been a little bit disappointing. He's been excellent in the first half of games, but in the second games, he seems to really go off a cliff edge at the minute. Where'd you land on this, Pat?
Which is funny because there have been past seasons where Kyler would have these slow first halves and then would come on with you'd sit there at halftime like, why does Kyler have 5 points? And then he finishes with 23 or 24. Kyler is indeed a streaky scorer, but I think today sets up well for a shootout in Green Bay. I'm taking Kyler over Baker.
Yeah, I think when you look at the amount of points on that one, it's like a 50-point over-under, and then you look at the Saints Bucks game, it just feels difficult. Adding the fact that, of course, Mike Evans is going up against his nemesis Marshawn Lattimore, and if you're taking away Mike Evans, what does that do to Baker's outlook? How do you feel about Mike Evans in general with that matchup, which has been incredible to watch, but not incredible for fantasy over the years?
Yeah, he has not scored a touchdown against the Saints, despite playing them twice a year, since 2020. And I think in his last 6 games, his high yardage output is like 70 yards. So it has not been great. Like Marshawn Lattimore has had Mike Evans' number. Where do you have Mike Evans ranked this week, Tom? I think I've got him at wide receiver 19, and even that feels slightly generous.
So I nudged him down 1 spot this morning, and I put Devonta Smith ahead of him at wide receiver 20 and nudged Evans down to wide receiver 21. But these are the guys I've got behind him: Tank Dell, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Darnell Mooney, and George Pickens. And I can make an argument to put any of them kind of above him. it's really difficult to sit him, but I think that I don't know if I'd want to put him any higher than sort of flex consideration, really, but it's giving me a lot of headaches.
The track record is bad for sure, but I just keep thinking about when Marshawn Lattimore was like in his first or second year, and he was just shutting people down left and right, and he played Julio Jones late twice in the season in the fantasy playoffs, and there were some people who wanted to sit Julio Jones. I want to say it was like week 15 or week 16, critical week. And Julio Jones wound up going off for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that. And so, like, Mike Evans could certainly, if he checks in with 90 yards and a touchdown, no one is going to be surprised. And a lot of people are going to be
Yeah.
kicking themselves for like benching him, second guessing it. But granted, it has not been a good track record for him against Lattimore.
Yeah, I mean, going back over the last 11 appearances, he has just 3 touchdowns. He's been held below 60 receiving yards in 8 of those 11 games. So definitely a difficult one, and it will give a lot of people headaches today. If you're confused about who to start, though, worried you made the wrong choice, let us do the work for you. Take the stress out of your lineup management with My Playbook's Autopilot tool. Autopilot makes it easy to manage your fantasy team's lineup, get suggested lineup changes via email, have us auto-swap inactive players for you, or turn on full autopilot to have your optimal lineup set automatically each week. Use autopilot at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app for both peace of mind and the best shot at victory each week. Let's get back to these questions. We've got Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson, 1 point per completion, which isn't something that you might necessarily think would be a great thing for either of those quarterbacks.
No, this scoring system does not favor those two gentlemen. I'm still going with Justin Fields here, although, man, I know some people are ranking Anthony Richardson like in the 20s at quarterback. I feel better about him than that, but I do have Fields ranked higher. Quarterback 10 versus, I think, quarterback 13 is where I have Richardson.
Yeah, I'm on Anthony Richardson. Sorry, I'm on Justin Fields here. Anthony Richardson's kind of in a point where he needs to prove it to me, and I think the Titans, they're a decent defense, they're not an excellent one, but right now I just shy away from that one. Where will we go next? So I had a quick question from Albert. Is Zamir White playing? I believe he is listed as a long shot according to Rap Sheet, saying that he practiced on Friday, but the team views him as a long shot to play. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Of course, we'll update if we see anything over the next 30 minutes before we get out of here. Do I play Tank Bigsby over Travis Etienne? I'm kind of ready for it.
Are you? Man, in PPR, I have to go with ETN here. It's just the format does not suit Tank Bigsby, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can definitely respect that in PPR. There's some stuff from Fantasy Points this week they put out that kind of touched on the fact that Travis Etienne is strongest in zone schemed runs, but the Bears defend them better than gap schemed runs. So I don't know how much of an impact that'll have, but yeah, I think it's getting closer and closer every week. A Thomas asks, Josh Downs or Tank Bigsby? So much Tank Bigsby chat today.
Yes. Even though this is PPR, I have to go with Bigsby here. I just don't know what the target distribution is going to look like with the Colts. And I worry that the floor is not. You feel great about the Josh Downs floor if it's Joe Flacco at quarterback, not so much if it's Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, definitely. It's really tricky. And speaking of Anthony Richardson, we've got Jared Goff or Anthony Richardson.
I'm going with Anthony Richardson here, and I know that's not going to be a popular choice. Like a lot of people's faith has been shaken in Richardson, but this is still a player who, in the 2 games he started and finished last year, granted a small sample size, finished QB2 and QB4 those weeks, and averaged more points per snap than Josh Allen, who led all quarterbacks in fantasy scoring last year. So Jared Goff, like Ben Johnson has leaned into the running game with the Lions. They are trying to run it down people's throats. And in their 3 victories this year, Jared Goff has averaged 23 pass attempts. So not a lot of passing volume. I like Anthony Richardson more this week.
Yeah.
Give me a contrary opinion. Tom?
No, I'm with you. I mean, they're close in my rankings. I've got Richardson QB16, Goff QB18. As already kind of touched on, I think the way to get at the Cowboys is on the ground game in particular. And if you're going to lean into David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, then it probably doesn't stack up to be a great passing game for Jared Goff. But obviously, that could go either way. Got some inactives and active news for the London game. Evan Ingram is active for it, as is Gabe Davis. Otherwise, everything is as you would expect. Pat, we haven't talked about your Packers enough yet. Rome Odunze or Dontavian Wicks?
Oh, man, I'm going Wicks here. We are not clear on the status of Christian Watson, although based on the Packers and their history of being pretty conservative about bringing players back from injury, I'm kind of expecting not to see Watson this week, even though he returned to practice. It didn't work out for Dontavian Wicks last week. He disappointed a lot of people, but the matchup again is very good against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think we have a handle on the target distribution weekly for the Packers for anyone really except Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft. But man, like Wicks earns high value targets. He'll drop a few, but he is a playmaker. I think I like Wicks a little more than Odunze here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that people have been scared off, but Wicks has had a crazy amount of targets over the last couple of weeks, and not all of it was on him last week. There was a couple of errant throws. There was a couple of things that could have easily swung his way with a bit of fortune. So I'm going back to Dontavian Wicks this week. Roshan Johnson or Jalen Warren. This one for me is Jalen Warren. I'm very excited to see him play. I think that you can punish the Raiders on the ground. Am I getting ahead of myself on Warren's injury return here, Pat?
No, I'm with you, Tom. And plus, Najee Harris hasn't looked all that great. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got a healthy dose of Jalen Warren this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was all set up for Najee to have that kind of like big contract year with Jalen Warren missing the start of the season. But Najee ranks 43rd in explosive run rate, 47th in yards per carry. He hasn't found the end zone yet. Just done nothing to take control of that job. Bucky Irving or Tyrone Tracy, full PPR?
Oh, Tyrone Tracy. I've got him ranked slightly higher. I'm just really excited by what we saw last week. I thought he looked fabulous. And, a more athletic player than Bucky Irving, too. I mean, that's kind of why I lost some enthusiasm for Bucky Irving. Really liked him in college, but he kind of disappointed at the combine. Not that athleticism is the end all be all at running back, but Tyrone Tracy definitely has the edge in that department over Bigsby or over Bucky Irving.
Yeah. Here's a rest of season question for Cogent. Drake London or Mike Evans?
Wow, this is a really close one for me. I might have to go with Drake London here, Tom. Is that
well, I wrote an absurd amount of Drake London propaganda on the website this offseason, and I haven't seen anything yet to make me go away from it. He was one of my highest. I think I was at about 25% Drake London across 350 best ball drafts this offseason. So, yeah, we're riding with Drake London. And I feel very good about it against the Panthers. The only kind of concern this week would be that the game becomes more of a Bijan Robinson game, but rest of the season, I just think everything's on the uptick for him. We want those kind of true wide receiver ones to see double-digit targets, and over the last 3 weeks, Drake London's seen at least 9 targets in every game, and it just feels pretty good right now. Let's take a defensive question, though. Green Bay or the Jets for this week? Obviously, the Jets are playing against the Bills. Green Bay are playing against the Cardinals. Where are we going?
I have Green Bay ranked. Do I have Green Bay ranked higher? I do have Green Bay ranked higher. My concern is that the Bills are going to be run heavy, and that just deprives a defense of chances to score fantasy points. I never want to start a team against, say, the Ravens, because we know that they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can. And now I think with the Bills situation at wide receiver, if they don't have Khalil Shakir, I think they're going to keep it on the ground this week. So I just think Green Bay is going to have more chances to score points.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And again, I mean, I think like the Jets possibly end up leaning into the run themselves. So if you've got two teams who are trying to attack the other one through the ground game, then yeah, it's not necessarily going to be conducive to high defensive scoring on that one. J.K. Dobbins, Darius Slayton, or Jalen Tolbert in half PPR?
I'm going with the safe touch floor of J.K. Dobbins here, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about how it's not necessarily a great matchup, but I mean, with Gus Edwards out, I'm I'm kind of fine with it. I'm surprised we've not had any Kamani Vidal questions yet. How do you feel about Vidal as a prospect? Like for me, it was always hoping for a lot out of what a sixth round running back, but maybe I'm just being a bit skeptical because of my Ravens links and thinking that JK can hold it down.
I do like the prospect quite a bit. I mean, he was just fantastic in college, and like the contact balance and like surprising power for a smaller back. I like him a lot. I have no handle on what the workload is going to be like. We don't even know if he's going to play ahead of Hassan Haskins today. There's no guarantee. And yet, Tom, I've got him in two different lineups today. So where desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yep, it is absolutely that time of year. I think in my home league, I've got a point where I'm starting Jalen Warren and Antonio Gibson and not feeling very good about it at all. But yep, let's take a London question from Sheldon. We've got, there we go. Oh, we've got Tank Dell or Brian Thomas Jr., 12 team standard. So obviously no points for receptions there. Where do you land on that, Pat?
Have to go with Brian Thomas Jr. here.
Yeah, I think Tank Dell, obviously, we're hoping that he can get back on track, but there's still so much projection to what we might be hoping for there. Full PPR need to Joe Mixon, Tyrone Tracy, Rico Dowdle. Are you confident in Joe Mixon coming off the injury?
Yeah, I think so. I would expect him to get 80% of his normal workload. And considering he is one of the few true workhorses among running backs in the NFL, I would play Tracy and Mixon here. Rico's been terrific, and it was nice that he finally got a number of touches befitting a lead running back last week against the Steelers, and he did well with them. But there have also been a lot of weeks where he's been limited to 10 or 12 touches. So he's the odd man out. All pretty good options, though.
Yeah, I'd feel fairly good about most of them. DeAndre Swift or Bucky Irving? Can DeAndre Swift keep getting away with it, Pat?
I have Bucky Irving ranked slightly higher. Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift has played well 2 weeks in a row, but this was a running game that seemed broken for the first 3 weeks of the season. So I don't have supreme confidence in that Bears running game against the one thing the Jags do well, Tom, is defend the run. Like that is their forte. And I have both guys ranked in the top 20, but I do feel a little bit better about Bucky this week.
Yep. Two guys with Packers links for you, Pat. Tucker Kraft or Alan Lazard?
I have to go with Tucker Kraft here. I still just can't trust Alan Lazard fully.
Yeah. And we've got a couple of questions asking Travis Etienne or Gibson. I've seen that one pop up a couple of times. I'm Travis Etienne there. Are you?
I have Gibson ranked 2 spots higher. Really close call. I just feel maybe a bit safer about the touch count with Gibson than I do with Travis Etienne.
Yeah. Let's take a couple more defensive questions. Got to show some love to the people who still play with defense in their leagues. Chargers or Denver, obviously facing off against each other. Which one do you feel better about?
I have the Broncos ranked 6th and the Chargers ranked 7th. So I'm going Broncos here.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Surtain is just on an absolute heater at the minute. Justin Herbert hasn't thrown for more than like 170 yards in any game. It just feels quite easy to be there.
And I don't think Bo Nix has taken more than 1 sack in any game this year, unless I'm mistaken. I think he's been sacked 1 time in every game he's played.
Nice. And he's averaging, like 20 rushing yards, which comes from that. He is getting away from things and doing nicely. Next defensive question, Eagles or Broncos? So obviously you said you had Broncos, what, 4th, was that?
6th.
6th. And Eagles facing Deshaun Watson.
I have the Eagles ranked number 2 this week. I would play the Eagles. It's just target the Cleveland offense wherever you can. I mean, Deshaun Watson has been an absolute sack magnet this year.
Yeah, it's the offensive line is so bad that you can just kind of really lean into that. Lad McConkey or Antonio Gibson this week, full PPR.
Antonio Gibson. I really hope I'm not overestimating the workload here, Tom, but I would expect that they don't want to put everything on Drake May's shoulders this week. So I feel like they have to give 20 plus touches to their running backs, and Gibson is the primary one this week.
Yeah, how are you feeling about Drake May being inserted into the starting lineup for the Patriots in general?
I think it's probably not going to be pretty in the passing game today, but Drake May was a very aggressive runner when he was in college. He averaged 11.4 carries a game in his 2 seasons as a starter at North Carolina, and averaged like 40 plus rushing yards a game. And that's even considering that sack yardage counts against quarterbacks rushing yardage in college football for some reason. So I think he's going to run for a lot of yards today, if not pass for so many. So I've got him at like quarterback 22, whereas a lot of people have him buried down at the bottom of the quarterback rankings this week. I do not.
Yeah, I took the over on his rushing line when it was at 26.5, and I felt very good about that. I expected it to be about 5 more than that, so definitely feeling good. And of course, Antonio Gibson starting because Ramondre Stevenson is ruled out. And if you're wondering if your injured players are suiting up, check out our new Are They Playing tool. It uses AI and years of injury data to give you an accurate prediction on whether an injured player will play. Sync your league and get a simple report for all your players on the practice report throughout the week. Best of all, it's available to everyone for free. Stop sweating the Sunday inactives and get ahead of these tough lineup decisions by visiting fantasypros.com/are they playing. Let's get back to some more questions. We got another 15 minutes to try and get through everything, but as Rex says, hit the like, everyone. Jalen Tolbert or Rashid Shaheed in standard, Pat?
Jalen Tolbert for me, Tom. I'm worried about wide receivers tethered to rookie quarterbacks making their first starts in the NFL.
Yeah, particularly when one is playing behind a very banged up offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see how the Saints script that game, what they try to prioritize, but I don't feel great about that one. We've got who are starting PPR flex, Josh Downs or Tank Bigsby. Obviously, since Josh Downs came back, he leads the Colts with 20 targets, nobody else above 15. Do you feel confident enough with him and Anthony Richardson, or is this Tank Bigsby?
I lose my confidence with Downs being paired with Bigsby, and Downs not fully healthy. He had the toe injury he was dealing with, and for a while it seemed as if he might not go. So I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby here.
Oh, this is a fun one. Chris Olave or Dontavian Wicks?
It's Dontavian Wicks for me this week. It's again Saints passing game avoidance.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Spencer Rattler, when he got up to the podium this week, he did say that he loves throwing the ball to Chris Olave, but I just don't feel particularly good about that one. We got Jonathan saying, Fitz, my NYC partial brother. I'm itching to go to Arthur Smith's House of Mirrors later and roll with Warren in second flex. You the man. Are you good with that? Like, how is your confidence level on Jaylen Warren in general?
Yeah, just because they do need something different in that running game. Like Najee has just been pretty pedestrian so far, and we know that Warren gives them a little more juice, a little more spark, a little more big play potential. So, they're not going to lean on the passing game. This is an Arthur Smith offense, and it's Justin Fields at quarterback. Like they want to run the ball, and I think pretty good chance we see 10 plus touches for Warren.
Yeah, we've got a good one here to get to. Austin Eckler with Brian Robinson out for this game. Tyron Tracy or David Montgomery, full PPR. I know where I'm going. Where are you going, Pat?
This is so hard. I have Montgomery ranked 11th, Tracy 13th, and Eckler 16th. So I'm going with Montgomery. It's just who gives you the best chance of touchdowns? It's Monty.
Yeah, I feel like Montgomery can go for 2 touchdowns today, but
I mean, he has to celebrate his big new contract, doesn't he, Tom?
Yeah, definitely. For anybody who missed it, he got a 2-year extension. I believe he had multiple years left on his deal already, and then got an extra 2 tagged on. So anybody really hoping Jahmyr Gibbs was going to take over that backfield completely in the next few years will be slightly disappointed in that one. DeAndre Hopkins or Javonte Williams at flex?
Javonte with the safe touch floor. As I mentioned earlier, 18 touches each of the last 2 weeks, and he's been pretty good. I think 2 weeks ago he had 80 yards from scrimmage. Last week over 100 for the first time.
Yeah, we've got some really fun questions, some really difficult decisions. This one is different in to that. Cortland Sutton or Romeo Doubs?
Yeah, I have to go with Cortland Sutton here. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
I know number one receiver on the Denver Broncos doesn't mean a lot, but he is the number one receiver on the Denver Broncos. And we don't know how Dobbs is going to work back into the offense, like after going AWOL last week and being suspended. Who knows if he even plays a full complement of snaps this week?
Yeah, it's definitely not a fun one. I mean, you could definitely see him popping up with a touchdown and all of a sudden all the wounds are healed, but I don't feel very good about that one. Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams? That's Caleb Williams for me. Pat, I assume you're the same.
Me too. Close, but I do prefer Caleb Williams. Yes.
Okay, and then 10-man PPR start Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz in that high over-under Ravens game?
Still Goddard, even though the outlook is certainly diminished with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith back, but Ertz just there's no big play potential. It's basically touchdown or bust with him. I'm going with Goddard.
Yeah, I think Zach Ertz is yet to kind of cross like 35 yards, and the only kind of point he scored was a 2-point conversion in the end zone. So it's not like they're looking to him when they get to the red zone. I believe they're quite heavy when they do get into the red zone with rush attempts. It's all been Brian Thomas or it's all been Jaden Daniels. So maybe that changes today without Brian Robinson, but yeah. Bucky Irving or Najee Harris? This one is Bucky Irving for me, Pat.
Me as well, Tom. Yes.
I mean, as a known Jaylen Warren truther, it's always going to be that way for me, though. And then we've got Darius Slayton or Tucker Kraft full PPR flex spot.
Oh, man. As I mentioned earlier, I don't love playing tight ends in the flex here. This one's close, really close, but I think I would go Darius Slayton. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, because of that defense of Cincinnati, they're just so poor. I mean, you go back through last year, and the Bengals gave up so many big explosive plays. Last week, Darius Slayton had 2 deep targets, had double-figure targets, and it just felt like things were just trending up slightly for him at the minute. Someone who things may trend up for or possibly down, depending on the outcome of this one. Wilson says, playing the wife this week, both as a 5-0. Should I take a flyer on Jeremy McNichols over Antonio Gibson? Jeremy McNichols on the Commanders, of course, who has seen some okay playing time over the last couple of weeks when Austin Eckler was out. Now with Brian Robinson out, it remains to be seen what his role is. The Commanders also did elevate Chris Rodriguez from the practice squad.
Quite the household grudge match here for Wilson. I still would have to go for Gibson, even though I do expect Jeremy McNichols to see half a dozen touches today, but I still think Gibson is a pretty good bet to get, a dozen or more touches.
Yeah. Lee's looking for London game help. Bucky Irving with White Doubtful or Tank Bigsby at RB. Where are we going on those ones first?
Bucky Irving, I just think he should have that backfield mostly to himself today, whereas Bigsby has to split work. And I also think Bucky Irving has pass catching upside where Bigsby does not.
Yeah, a lot of Bucky questions today, a lot of Darius Slayton questions today, and we've got Slayton or Jalen Tolbert at flex. For me, this one is Tolbert, but I don't think that either are a bad choice.
Yeah, that is a really close one. Right now, I've got Slayton ranked slightly higher. Just I don't know about that one. To me, that one is a true coin flip. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to defer to you there, Tom. But yeah, that one is just really tough.
And Tyler Algier against the Panthers or Justice Hill against the Commanders. We know that Justice Hill plays more when the games get really quite pass heavy. We know Tyler Algier has looked pretty good when he's come in over the last few weeks. So that's a tricky one. I think I'd just lean towards Algier.
I would too against the Panthers. Considering they've been like trying to use him, and it feels like when they want to run the ball inside, they would rather do it with Tyler Algier than with Bijan Robinson. So yeah, enhanced outlooks for both of those number 2 running backs, but I do think Algier is maybe a safer play.
Yeah, I think Algier, the way I'm looking at that Panthers game, Algier has a good chance to be in for mop-up duty later on and just be able to get some garbage time points. Rico Dowdle or Christian Kirk in full PPR?
I'll go with Rico Dowdle here. Lead back for a good offense.
Yeah, Christian Kirk, I do think that he's been a good fantasy asset this year, and I think that he's a little underappreciated at times with Evan Ingram back. Maybe things just the volume comes away from him slightly, so I'm good with that. Mike Evans against the Saints, we talked about earlier, or Amari Cooper this week.
Oh, man. Even with my concerns about Mike Evans, I mean, obviously you have to be concerned about the state of the Cleveland passing game. So I would rather go with Evans here.
Yeah, good with that one. Chris Olave, Tony Pollard, or Deontay Johnson in full PPR. There's
I
a
have to
lot
go.
of headaches there.
Yeah, Tony Pollard here. Like
Yeah.
the backfield does seem like it is really tilted toward Tony Pollard after, we were told by Brian Callahan in the preseason, I think, that this was going to be kind of a 1A, 1B situation. Hasn't been that at all. It's been Tony Pollard, so I would play him.
Yeah, Pollard's averaging 15 rush attempts per game and 4 targets compared to Spears' 6 and 3 targets. So I'm good with that. He's my RB7 this week. Let's try and get through a few more of these before we have to get out of here. Amari Cooper, Jameson Williams, or Jalen Tolbert, pick 2. For me, that's...
You were saying?
I was going to say Tolbert and Cooper, I think I'd probably go.
Oh, okay. For me, it would be Cooper and Jameson.
Okay, what about this one? Fitz, Darnell Mooney or T. Higgins? I'm going with T. Higgins there. Like, it felt like in the run up to last week's game, he was inches away from getting a really big game. Variance broke his way, and obviously he had a huge game against the Ravens, and I'd just give him that edge. But Darnell Mooney has been very good.
Yeah, but the Bengals offense is humming, Tom. 33 or more points in 3 straight games, and they have averaged 417 yards of offense over their last 3 games. I want the guy in that offense.
Yep. This is one which nobody really wants to ask themselves after probably thinking they were good. Kyle Pitts or Mark Andrews?
I have to go with Kyle Pitts just because Mark Andrews not running enough routes, and it's become a 3-way tight end split with the Ravens. So I just feel a little bit better about Pitts' usage.
Yeah, it was kind of see Mark Andrews have 5 catches last week, and he could have had that touchdown if it wasn't underthrown by Lamar, but it was the absolute perfect game script, and he still only got to where he was. That big run by Charlie Kohler, I could have sworn it was Mark Andrews when I first saw it.
Yes, I know.
Hurt me hurt me very deep. And we've got a question here. Drop Mark Andrews for either K. Dotton, Cole Kmet, or Tyler Conklin. There's a lot of cardio going on there.
Yes, there is. And Tyler Conklin has been getting targets lately. I'm kind of inclined to go with him.
Yeah, I'm fine with Conklin there. I think that he seems to Aaron Rodgers' trust. He's on the field playing like 90% of snaps every week. So I'm completely fine with that one. David Njoku or Cole Kmet for Ryan?
I'll go Cole Kmet. Again, just avoiding the Cleveland offense. And we have not seen Njoku really click with Deshaun Watson at all this year or last year. And then I would go Rico Dowdle over Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like all of Njoku's big games came with Joe Flacco or Jacoby Brissett, really. Darnell Mooney or Chris Olave in full PPR?
Now that one I can decisively say Darnell Mooney. Have not chosen him in any Darnell Mooney question yet. This time I'm going with him over the guy tied to the rookie quarterback.
And then we have got Brock Bowers or Sam Laporta.
Well, considering that the Raiders have no healthy wide receivers, I think this one has to be Brock Bowers. You can't bench Brock Bowers under any circumstances.
Yeah, and Brock Bowers is delivering exactly what we kind of hoped for. We'll get to just a couple of quick last ones. Rico Dowdle or Chase Brown? That's Chase Brown for me. Where you at, Pat? And I definitely heard you speak a lot about Chase Brown this offseason.
No, man, I love Chase Brown. I know, but I have to go with Rico, the guy who has the backfield mostly to himself. That's a really close call, but yeah.
Okay, and Zach Ertz or Evan Ingram in his return from injury. I don't really enjoy this one, but I think I'm probably Evan Ingram.
Same. I mean, the guy did have over 100 catches last year, so I'm going with Ingram too.
Yeah, and that is going to do it. Sorry if we didn't get to your questions. Drop them in the comments below after the video is finished, and I will try and answer as many comments as I possibly can before we get to kickoff today. Next Saturday, I'll be back with Andrew Exon at 6 p.m. Eastern for this show. Obviously, head over to FantasyPros.com where there is loads of articles on there which will get you set up. We've got the expert consensus rankings. Go and download my playbook because that will make your life much easier. For me, Pat, and Seth, our great producer, thanks everyone for hanging out, and we will catch you very soon.